because I wanted access across here. I want to be able to push a wheelbarrow, drive a tractor, although it's getting a little small through there, so on and so forth. A couple of other things that we've done here is we had a lot of old existing trees that weren't very productive. So this is an old unproductive plum tree up there. But I grafted on a very productive Asian plum tree right down here. So all of these lower branches are methyl Asian plum. And this is only about 4 years old, this graft down here. Super productive, down low where I can harvest. In fact, you could start seeing fruit sets on it already. It's blossomed already. So think about those things. You can graft onto hawthorn, you can graft onto crabapple, you can graft onto any old existing tree and bring it back to life, revitalize it with cultivars that you like to eat. So I've done that. That is a ornamental cherry over there. I've grafted on 3 different varieties of sweet cherries on the lower branches of that. So we've got big flowering things and then productive fruiting things down low.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. You can also do stuff like graft a male sea berry onto a female sea berry and have pollen drilling down from the top of that onto the one tree if you're short on space. You can also graft 4 varieties of apples onto one tree. So you have early season, mid-season, late season, and a storage apple if you're tight on space. So grafting and plant propagation skills are really beneficial in a lot of ways. Yeah, we can wander on down through we'll walk through this way. So the nursery stuff is over through here when you're ready to look at nursery stuff. But we'll wander on down through to here. And then I think I got to wrap it up. I'm probably over time already. Oh yeah, I'm a half hour over. So this little conveyance ditch, this is where the water comes from all of that system way up there. Comes down through here, and then it gets caught in this other swale. And this swale is on the downhill side of this mound, and this mound is a Hugelkultur. So there was a huge cottonwood tree here that we took down, and we laid it out, and we buried it. And the reason the swale's on this side is because I got a walnut tree right there, and I didn't want to disturb the roots. But also, you don't want to swale usually on the uphill side of a Hugelkultur, because what happens when wood gets wet? It wants to float and push downhill. Our ground is not steep enough, but I've heard of Hugelkulturs actually blowing out because people put a swale on the uphill side of that Hugelkultur. But this still allows water to go in and charge that wood with moisture, and it creates a moisture flywheel and nutrient sink in the winter so that it stays moist all summer long. And then when this overflows, it comes right through here, and then it wiggles around all the way down to the front. So I would speak a little bit about community. We've got two cabins here that we have people living in. They're involved on the farm to various extents, and each of these folks have their own Zone 1 garden. So they have their own place for their salad crops, for things they want to experiment with, for their herbs, all that kind of stuff. And if they want to do more stuff, there's space up there for them to do more. And they're involved with, pruning and harvesting and preserving and all of these things. But it builds community. And permaculture is not just about growing a garden or a food forest or whatever. It's about community, and it's about the way we can create permanent culture and learn to work together and live together, do financial enterprises together, teach our children together, all of these things. And to us, that's another really important aspect of what we're trying to do here. And so people that have lived in these cabins over the years, they're typically young people that want to learn all these skills, and they will typically stay anywhere from 2 to 5 years and then buy their own property and start doing this. So we want to infect everybody with these skill sets, because it really is a way to, protect the environment, build soil, filter water, create clean air, everything, and provide for all our human needs. Yeah. So, we do community, monthly potlucks usually in the summer, and we do other things. We raise a flock of meat chickens usually together. We've done, depending upon who's here and how much they want to be involved, we've done various things.
What's this growing on top with the white flowers?
Yeah, this is sweet Sicily. Now, if you want an invasive thing, this is pretty invasive, but it's also completely edible. So you can eat the flowers, you can eat the leaves, you can try the leaves. They're a little fuzzy, but they taste like licorice.
The peeled stems are really good.
The peeled stems you can eat like celery. My favorite are actually the seed pods. It puts up a little seed pod that looks like a little bean, and they're just crunchy and sweet. They're like an after dinner freshener, like they're a digestive. You can also dig up the roots and make a syrup out of it. So you dig up the roots and boil them and render it down and make a syrup. They're a great pollinator habitat, and they're a deep-rooted plant, which I consider a dynamic accumulator and a bioaccumulator. And so I use them as a compost crop too. So they have very deep roots, so they bring up all those minerals into their things. And if I'm looking for a lot of green material to make my compost, I'll cut comfrey, nettles, and this. And you get a complete complement of minerals in that compost, and it smells like a spa. It's just like sweet and delicious.
Compost tea or compost?
Compost. You could do compost tea with it as well. Yeah.
I never know how much.
But it does spread by seed. So if you don't want it, it's gotten a little bit crazy. But it loves it under the walnut tree. So it's like, hey, who cares?
Perfect.
But I do try and chop the seed heads so it doesn't go. See, there's one over there, out of bounds, right behind you. And it will spread by seed. It will spread by roots. So if it's not where you want it, like all this comfrey there, oh well. It's nice to have a big patch of comfrey because I cut it, like I say, for my compost, and I make compost tea out of it too.
When it comes to the compost tea, how do you know how much to dilute it? Do you go by a visual, like how the color?
So compost tea is different than a compost ferment. So these I would call a compost ferment. So you take the green plant material and you throw it and you rot it down in a bucket of water.
Right.
And then you stir it, and then you strain it, and then you dilute that down. And usually I'll do it like 10 to 1. It's not so strong. You're not going to burn anything. It's just kind of like the direct comfrey. It's like black. So if you put it on your lettuce, you're going to have black lettuce. You know.
Is it still viable if it's sat for a year?
Yeah. So here's the thing with compost teas or compost ferments. If it's anaerobic, you have a potential for growing out anaerobic bacteria, which all the nasty stuff are anaerobic bacteria. Salmonella, botulism, all those guys are all anaerobic. So before you use it, you want to make it aerobic. So you want to stir it or give it oxygen, bubble it or something before you apply it. The longer it sits, the more nutrients you lose, and I would just start again. Personally, I would just toss that out on your fruit trees or somewhere where it's not on your leaves, and the soil will, fix it. But yeah, you want actively aerated compost, and then you grow out aerobic bacteria, which are all the good guys. And you don't have to worry about all the potential nasty bacteria. So my rule of thumb, if it smells bad, it is bad. Your nose is the center for a reason. It's evolved over time. It's like, is that rotting? Is that going to kill me? Maybe. If it smells bad, maybe. So if it smells good, it is good. If it smells bad, it is bad. Not saying you can't bring it back to life by making it aerobic again. But you know, if you ever had a compost pile and you fork into it and it's like, whoa, well, that was an anaerobic compost pile. If you fork into it and it smells like rich, earthy sweetness, then it's a good aerobic compost pile. Yeah. And the compost tea that I brew it out in a 55-gallon drum. I have a big fan that blows down into it. I put in about a gallon of my really high quality compost, which I consider compost like sourdough. Like you use some of the compost to make the next compost, and it just gets better and better over time because you keep introducing different microbial life and bacteria and fungal communities into that compost. So you keep it going, you keep it alive, and you get the really good stuff. I put it in a burlap sack in this barrel of water. I put in with it soluble minerals, so like azomite, rock dust, seaweed, like kelp meal. I put in worm castings, and I put in micro grow, which is like spores, mycorrhizal spores. Mm-hmm. And you put all that into the bag, and I soak it in there, and I aerate it for 24 hours with about a quarter cup of molasses. And the molasses.
You just aerate it with a fan, not with any kind of bubbler or anything?
It's a bubbler. It's a pressure blower fan that blows down to the bottom of the tank and out through holes, and it's like it's an active rolling boil. And it wants to be about 68 to 75 degrees is the optimal temperature for it to grow out all the bacteria and microbes. And you can increase your compost like tenfold by just applying compost tea. Like we just make one really high quality compost pile a year, and then we apply the compost tea, and that's what keeps all our soil life happy. So it's a powerful tool, and there's a lot to it. If you really want to get into it, check out Soil Food Web. It's put together by Elaine Ingham. She's a soil scientist, and she's really brought a lot of fresh information to the soil sciences world. And she actually has a whole several, I don't know, it's a week or month-long course on soil sciences, and you get accredited and all this stuff. And she does compost tea aerial application on thousands of acres and converts, you know, whole acreages like in Australia and Texas and other things, fixes all their soil problems just through bringing biology back to the soil. Yeah, it's amazing stuff.
Brian,
Yes,
what's that white flowering low tree?
This is
That-
beautiful.
that's a quince.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,